What's up, everybody? My name is Brandon and welcome back to my channel. Today I have another spooky Scott-ober video planned. This one is going to be the story of an event that occurred after I got home from a gig late one night, and Jonathan called me almost in tears with what was happening in our apartment complex. So without further ado, this is The Woman in the Woods. It was a few days after Christmas, and my boyfriend Jonathan and I were on break. He didn't have to go to classes, and I didn't have to go to work. Well, that's not entirely true. I didn't have to teach. I was, however, still performing at various weddings and company Christmas parties with my band. On this particular day, I was performing at a wedding in Lynchburg, Virginia. We got to the gig around noon and performed from 8:30 p.m. to 11:30 p.m. When we were finished, we packed all of our equipment into our trailer and headed home around 12:30 a.m. I live a little over 2 hours from Lynchburg, so I was due back home around 2:30 to 3 a.m. My best friend Kayla, who is the other lead singer of our band, was driving me back to my apartment after dropping off our trailer at our bassist's home. We were about 5 minutes from my apartment when I get a call from Jonathan. "Hey, what's up, babe?" I say, fighting through my fatigue to sound chipper. "When are you getting home?" he asks with urgency. "I'm about 5 minutes away. Why? What's going on?" "Somebody just woke me up." "In the apartment?" I ask, obviously fearful of the return of the evicted tenant we experienced a few months before. "No, I heard a woman screaming for help." "Are you sure you weren't just half asleep?" Now, I don't want you to think that I'm like one of those parents in a scary movie that doesn't believe their child's story until it's too late. Jonathan is just notorious for talking in his sleep, and occasionally he wakes himself up speaking too loudly. "I'm sure, I keep hearing it. It's like she's running back and forth or something." "Okay, well, have you called the police?" "No." "Babe, are you serious?" "I'll just wait until you get here." "Bitch, what am I supposed to do? I don't want to get out of the car if something's going down." "So I'm just supposed to stay here where all the crazy is happening?" "No, you're supposed to call the police so that they can come and inspect what's going on." For context, Jonathan is Latinx, as well as a first-generation American citizen, so he has a lot of hang-ups when it comes to law enforcement because of the experiences that he's had with them growing up. He never wants to call 911, and for those of you who are familiar with our revenge-seeking evicted tenant story, one thing I left out was the whispered arguments that Jonathan and I had while I was trying to convince him to call the police. It took a lot of bargaining and a true sense of danger for him to call. Because I know this about him, I tell him, "All right, babe, I'm going to hang up the phone and call the police." "No, what if something happens?" "Go ahead and call Kayla's phone. That way you can update us if anything goes down, but we need to call the police." "Okay, I love you." "I love you too. I'll see you soon." Click. "Wow, he really doesn't want to call 911, Kayla says. "Yeah, it's a whole thing," I say while I dial those infamous 3 numbers into my phone. While the dispatcher gives me her spiel, Kayla answers Jonathan's call. I answer all of the dispatcher's questions and get off the phone as we are pulling up to the apartment building. When we pull up, I spot a car with the doors on the right side facing the building, flung wide open. I tell Kayla to drive around it slowly. There was no one in the car. As we drove around the car, we spotted something lying on the pavement. We thought it was an animal at first, but soon realized that it was actually a wig. When we got closer, we saw that the wig was matted with leaves and rocks, and our hearts sank. We pull up to the other side of the building and put the car in park and wait for officers to arrive on the scene. It's not long after we parked in that spot that we see a man carrying 3 children out of the door of the apartment complex. "Oh shit," Kayla says. As if he heard Kayla's remark, his head snaps in our direction. Without a moment's hesitation, he drops the children, runs down the steps, and toward our car. "What the fuck is he doing?" I asked, my heart in my throat. "I don't know, but I'm going to hit his ass," Kayla said, putting the car in drive. The car starts to lurch forward when the man reaches it, and he puts his hand on the hood. Hold up, he says. "Fuck no," Kayla shouts back. "I'm gonna see if she in there," he says, peering into the back window of Kayla's car. "Who?" Kayla asks, but before she can get the word out of her mouth, he raises his arm above his head and begins to shout. "Come on out. I know you're out there." He's advancing toward the forest in front of us. "I'm taking the kids. You sure you don't want to come out? Because you ain't never gonna see them again." He raises his hands with his middle finger up to the forest. Fuck you, fuck." He quickly turns around and sprints back to the children, who were still standing atop the steps outside crying. The oldest of the three had to be no older than 5 years old, and it hit me just how much danger this man was putting the children in by leaving them at the top of these steep steps. I was glad that none of them toppled over the edge because they wouldn't have survived a fall from that height. Sirens. Kayla and I look at each other with a sense of relief between us. However, when we turned back to see the man, he was already closing the back doors of his car and racing around to the driver's side. My heart dropped. "There's no way he's going to get away, right?" I asked. "No, the police sound so close, there's no way." His engine revs, and he makes a quick U-turn in that half-empty parking lot before racing out of the complex. Right as he turns right onto the main road, the police officers pull in. Kayla and I hop out of the car immediately and approach the patrol vehicle with our hands raised. We alert the officers that the man just fled the scene as they were pulling out. "Oh, so that's why he was in such a hurry," one of the officers says, walking toward the apartment building. Yeah? Are you going to go follow him? He has the woman's children with him," I say, confused as to why the officer seems so nonchalant. "First, we're going to secure the perimeter here," says the other officer as the first one approaches the door of the apartment building. "Are they serious right now?" Kayla asks me, just as confused as I am. Many other tenants begin to come outside, including Jonathan. Apparently, the woman was running around the building screaming help, hoping that anyone would open the door for her. Several people called the police, but no one opened the door to offer refuge in their home. A lot of them felt badly about it, but voiced their concern for their own safety. After all, ruses such as this one had recently been making headlines, where a woman creates a distraction, seemingly less dangerous than men, and while the victim least expects it, a group of men come into the apartment and rob them. I don't think I would have opened my door either if I was in the circumstance out of the same fear that my neighbors voiced. However, I still felt badly for the woman. Could you imagine seeking solace from a violent man and having your cries fall on deaf ears? It's utterly heartbreaking. The officers questioned all of us, but one question was repeatedly on their lips. Where is the victim? No one knew. Kayla and I told them that we suspected that she ran into the forest because the man was shouting obscenities into the woods after racing off with her children. I spot headlights coming back toward the road that our complex was on, and my stomach drops. I know that the man was returning. I don't know how I knew, but I knew without a shadow of a doubt in that moment that it was him. I turned to Kayla and Jonathan with utter fear in my eyes. "He's back. That's him." "What? How do you know?" they ask in near perfect unison. "Just trust me. We need to hide behind these steps." I make a run for it, but they idle in the parking lot for a few more seconds, as if they didn't believe me. "Please, come on." My fear was that he may have a weapon and do a drive-by to clear out any witnesses that may have seen his face. Yeah, I know. I've seen way too many episodes of Forensics Files, but it could happen. The last thing I would want is my boyfriend and best friend to be taken away from me in one fell swoop. Not to mention right in front of me. They start making their way over, but before they fully make it behind the steps, we hear the other tenants shouting, "That's him! That's him!" The engine revs again and the man's tires screech as he makes a U-turn to leave the complex yet again. We move from behind the steps. The police officers finish talking with the other tenants and slowly start making their way into the patrol car. But as they put their car in reverse, the man returns and parks at the edge of the complex parking lot. The police officers park and get out of their car. They start to approach the man. When we see the man trying to talk his way out of the situation. Luckily, the officers didn't buy what he was saying, because they approach him with cuffs in hand. They spin him around and place him against the cruiser while placing him in cuffs. It wasn't until the officers opened the door of the cruiser to put him in that the man started going crazy again. "You really gonna let them arrest me? Come out and tell them you was hitting me. Tell them that I didn't need to be arrested." One of the officers puts his hand on the man's head to lower him into the cruiser, but the man resists. Bitch, if you don't come out right now and tell them that they're making a mistake, you're gonna regret it. I'm gonna get out, and when I do, I'm gonna get your ass." The officer is finally able to get the man into the car, but we can still hear him yelling, though it was muffled from the closed doors of the cruiser. The officers then turn their attention to the man's car to get the children to safety. However, when they opened the back of the man's car, it was empty. "Where are the kids?" I ask aloud to Kayla and Jonathan. "Oh my God, I really hope that they're safe," says Kayla, her eyes wide in horror. The officers walk back toward the crowd of tenants. "Are you sure there were children in the vehicle?" one of them asks. "Yes, sir, there were 3 of them, and they were all younger than 5 years old," Kayla says, her voice trembling a bit. The other officer opened the door to speak with the man about the location of the children. The man begins yelling again. "Come out! The kids are with my mom and Riley. If you don't come out right now, then you'll never see them again." The officer closed the cruiser door again and said something over his walkie. The other officer begins walking toward the driver's side door, and they both get into the vehicle and drive out of the complex, leaving us all standing outside in the parking lot. Some of the other tenants began to call for the woman's name, letting her know that the man was gone and that she should go get her kids. However, there was no response, and we all waited for about 30 minutes before we decided to call it a night. Kayla gets back into the car to drive back to her apartment. Jonathan and I go back inside and get into bed together, although I didn't get much sleep that night because my mind was running rampant with thoughts of what may have happened to those children. I'm not a religious person, but I remember praying that the woman was able to be reunited with her children soon and that they would get away from North Carolina as quickly as they possibly could. Whoever this man was, he was dangerous. I still don't know if the children were ever found or reunited with their mother. I'm not sure if that woman ever made it out of the forest alive. I also hope that this man hasn't found another woman to make his victim. Alright guys, that's it for this video. If you liked it, please be sure to give it a big thumbs up. Also subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and hit that notification bell so you're notified every time I post a new video. My name is Brandon, and I will see you all next time. Bye.